Hi, this is Eli Ochiltree of the SnoKing Beekeepers Association. This is our third Wednesday monthly meeting, January 17th, 2024. So the first club meeting of 2024. And we're going to try to console everybody who's sitting there biting their nails over their hives. And if you already have dead outs, we're going to commiserate and give you lots of sympathy and hopefully not too much unsolicited advice, but I'll share some pictures on other people's dead outs. So if you really want to show yours, that's okay. And we'll talk about the difference between nukes and packages. And those of you who've already decided about, are you a nukes person or a package person? I mean, it's almost like sports, which one are you a fan of? But there's reasons for both. I push heavily for nukes, but hopefully there's somebody in here who pushes really heavily for packages and we can have a great discussion. And that's really the most important things is winter woes and getting ready for the spring. And Carol Moore hasn't signed on yet, I don't think, but she redid the nuke package list. And I will get that posted as soon as we get off the meeting tonight. I will go, it's on the snokingBKA.org website on the front page. There's a couple of things we'll talk about tonight. One of them is the nuke package list. And there's not big updates from year to year. Many of the suppliers stay in business year to year and they have a returning clientele. And that might help you. That package, I think it's 9 pages long. That package list will help you find those people again. It'll also help you find if there's somebody that's closer to you and you were thinking you had to drive 100 miles, but you actually have someone much closer. And we'll talk about that. So I think that's the basics. Commiserating, talking about dead outs, what we can do in our hives and cannot do. And we can argue a little about that too. But mainly, we have to resist the urge to go in there. Okay, so I'm Eli Ochiltree, and I'm the director of SnoKing Beekeepers. So Sandy, all I can see is the top of your head. You want me to introduce you? Since you already got your journeyman. This is journeyman Sandy Pruitt, who writes the articles in the newsletter. You want to unmute and say hi? Or just wave?
Okay, hi.
Okay, and you're right. Oh, now your swarm splits article I saved. And I'm gonna put it in a little closer to swarm splits time. Okay?
Okay.
You have it written, I already have it.
Sure.
Okay. And Heidi is staying quiet there. So I don't know if she really wants to speak up.
Hi, everyone.
Okay, and you are working on Journeyman and you do a little products and a little hive hosting and also you put together the list of honey sellers on our homepage. Again, there's are you looking for local honey? And Heidi took charge of that and she's in charge of that page. You click on that and you will go to the list of people who have especially honey for sale, but maybe hive host or something else. Ed, you want to say hi? I know you're beginner class, and I know that you got a mentor. You're one of the lucky people who found a mentor. Up there, I think.
Well, now I can unmute. There we go. It should be unmuted now. I had to get rid of a top bar up there so I can get the unmute button.
Okay, Granite
Yeah,
Falls, right?
Yes, I'm a Granite Falls, but I do have a mentor. Yeah, she's really great.
Sandra Forer, right? Okay.
Yep.
You'll be at that apiary, so people might meet Ed out there. Carrie, I don't know. I remember the name, Carrie. You're coming up on my screen. I don't know if you're coming up on other people's screen. I'm kind of going.
Yeah, I took your beginner class maybe 2 years ago. So
Oh.
I just got the newsletter. I've been getting the newsletter regularly, and today I decided to read it. And so it's great that I saw about auditing maybe that beginner class.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that was an interest of mine.
Email, and then we have them, half a dozen times a year. The Saturday one, there's lots of room in, and Gina would probably let you sneak in on the Thursday if you need to. And then we'll be doing it again and again. But this is the time of the year. Yes, connect with us now. Glad to see you back.
Thank you.
Okay, Jen, you're next on my list. And I know you already took beginner.
Yes, I took beginner. I'm going to take apprentice in February. I haven't signed up yet, but I will.
Okay, sign up, because that's one of my announcements is to order enough manuals. There's no refund. If we order the
Oh.
manuals, we can't give them back. So sign up and
Okay,
pay. So I
I'll
can
do
get
that
the manuals. Okay, and then Toby, you've been coming a long time. You're a long time beekeeper.
Well, this will be my third summer, but I took beginner and apprentice with you, and I'm here with my son Cooper, who helped me a bit last summer because he's big and strong, and he's going to start keeping on his own this summer. So
Great. So he gets all the honey proceeds from his, right?
we'll see.
That is great.
Yeah.
Okay, Katie, you're doing all of them. You're in a journeyman now.
Yeah, I'm in Journeyman. I'm actually down in Pierce County, but I like to keep tabs on you guys, and I'm taking Eli's classes. So, yeah, I think I'm in a winter with 12 hives right now. So
That's-
far, everybody's surviving. Knock on wood.
Yes, that's good. Good to hear. Encouragement.
Yeah.
Okay. Tony's on the other side of the sound with East Jefferson Bees. You want to say hi, Tony?
Hi, everybody. And I don't have video of anybody. Can you
Dude,
probably can't
I
see
can
me
see
either.
you. So don't do anything you don't want us to know.
Oh gosh, I've been having my dinners. Yeah,
Okay.
chips, cheese.
Okay.
Yeah,
Tony-
I have a new screen. It's a 27-inch screen, and I'll
Yeah,
just have to work
doing
on
something
it.
funny. Yeah, and Tony's kind of the APMA expert, so you ask him about that. Okay, and a few other things. Ty is our master beekeeper. Got master this year.
Yep. Snohomish, 12 hives, and they're doing okay for now, but I'm looking forward to being able to check in on them on the next week or so. If they're going to make an appearance, then I'll be feeding them and see where we're at.
We'll wait for the update because Ty did a real insulation experiment, which is we're all waiting for the results of.
Yep.
Okay, Dan. And Dan, oops, Dan.
I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, I can hear you. Your picture
Okay.
disappeared. Now I can hear you.
Picture disappeared. That's normal.
Okay,
I'm down in Olympia,
great.
where it's not as cold as you guys, but you can keep the cold up there because we got our own problems.
Okay, and so welcome. Are you which level? I have no idea.
I finished my apprentice with you about a year and a half ago, I think.
Oh, what's your last name?
Clark.
Okay. And then Michael jumped around. Michael Duncan, you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, Mike Duncan here down in Quilcene, and I've got 16 colonies, 8 hives, and 8 nucs.
And you do a lot of mentoring, and you're very interested in getting mentoring going, and you work in the apiary there too.
Yeah, we're with East Jefferson, and I got my journeyman with Eli, and hopefully we'll get our masters through here with WASBA and WSU if they get their act together.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have sort of an update on that. We'll get to that. Carol Moore, who redid the new package list that we're going to talk about tonight, because everybody's starting to say, maybe I'm going to need some bees, except for the people like Katie who are saying, oh, I'm doing great. So thanks, Carol. And
oh, you're welcome.
Okay, so we'll talk about it tonight, and that it's still a work in progress.
Yeah, there are very few 2024 prices on that list.
Yeah, nobody wants to commit until they actually have the bees in their hands and see what everyone else is gonna.
Well, it's interesting to hear the excuses.
Yeah. Yeah, but still, it's a start to have names and addresses with zip codes and. Okay.
Right.
Okay, Steve, you're next. Steve always goes on the phone. Just say hi, Steve.
Hi, Steve.
Okay, good. Okay, Steve, you've already done an apprentice, right?
Yeah. I haven't started the journeyman yet. Nope.
Okay, and you're working with your son too, so you got a bee buddy. It's really nice.
Correct.
A bee buddy.
Yeah. he is. I don't know why he hasn't taken the apprentice class. I have to ask him. He was supposed to be on tonight, but I don't see his name on here.
That's okay. Everyone's busy. Although this is the easiest time of the year to do extra. Okay.
Correct.
Emma, I don't recognize your name at all. You can introduce yourself. Oh, it's the whole family. Wow. Everybody's on it, says 11, 9, 7 years old. So hi to the whole family, okay? And then maybe we'll go to Nathan. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Been keeping bees for a few years here in the Monroe area of Snohomish County, and trying to start a little sideline business.
Yep. And you're going between like 20 and 30 hives, depending
Yeah.
on bear visits.
Other than my bear knockdown this year, it was only lost, well, yet to be seen, of course, but only 2 in the immediate incident.
Yeah. Those bears. It's nice that we help out the wildlife.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. And oh yeah, Monroe area. I didn't really say. And you can introduce yourselves on chat too. If you want to kind of connect with somebody here on chat and put out the feelers. Dennis.
Hi, Dennis Euler, second-year beekeeper in the Auburn, Washington area. I have had 1 nuc and 1 package. The package survived, the nuc did not.
which is the opposite of what a lot of us tell you, that it's going to be the package that has the edge. Thanks, Dennis. And Paula.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Hi, Paula. Oh, and you did the calendar. If anybody needs a quick introduction, you do gorgeous photography and other things to do with bees and a lot of things.
Yeah, so I've got 5 hives going into winter, and so far they're all still alive. I've got the brood binder sensors on all of them. Some of them are doing better than others, but it looks like they're all at least warmer than the outside temperature, so that's a good sign. I've only got a weight scale on one of them, and it's getting a little light, so I might need to start, putting some sugar or something on them. But right now they had plenty of honey going into winter, so they might be good for till spring. But everything's going pretty good so far. Oh, and I don't know if I mentioned it. I'm in Monroe, south end of Monroe.
Great. And you can help me a little with the graphs. I put up the graphs of some of the hives. And like you said, temperature inside the hive is above the outside temperature. Probably means they're alive.
Yep.
And the weight's going down, and which is good because it means probably means they're eating.
Yeah, I think my highest temperature one is around 70 or 80 right now, which is surprising they're that warm given how cold it is. And then the lowest one has been in the 40s.
Maybe right up at the sensor. Maybe the cluster's right there.
Yeah.
Or your inner cover trapped the heat.
But they've been like really warm all since the beginning of winter. So I don't know.
Okay, Melissa. Hi.
Hello. Been a while since I've been here. So I'm in the Snohomish Lake Bosworth area. I've got 3 hives that were pretty strong going into winter. The clusters were a little small last time I looked, so I'm a little bit nervous. But I'm going into year 5 and still working on my journeyman.
Great. Okay, Scott. Oh, hi there, Scott. With picture.
Hello. I took the beginner class. I'm registered for the apprentice class. And I started a podcast called Teach Me Bees, part of our beekeeping company that we're launching. Me and another guy who's not on the call right now, but we're in Monroe, actually. So those of you who are in Monroe, maybe I'll try and chat with you.
Trying to get interviewees for the podcast. Yeah.
Anyone who I know for journeyman, you need to like teach others and such. And so anyone in the journeyman or beyond, or really anyone who wants to talk about their beekeeping experience, we would love to possibly get you on there. So yeah, it's all about teaching people about bees. So
yep. people might even have an interest in native pollinators or planting for bees or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd probably be happy to have them on your podcast. I don't think
Wide range of people we want to have on. So, we've had a professor from Washington State. We've had I don't know if you know Charlotte Wiggins. We just interviewed her, and I don't know. We've interviewed a couple backyard beekeepers. I mean, just anyone along the spectrum in the bee world. So.
And we put how to find you in the newsletter, right? And you can put it in chat too if you want.
Yeah, yeah. I'll drop a link as well. So people
Okay,
can
yeah.
check it.
Anybody that wants to we mentioned something, put the link in chat and then everybody can find it. And sometimes we can even collect enough links and put them on the Facebook discussion group or something to help people out. Some notes. Pat, you're up next. Thanks, Scott.
Hi, I'm in Marysville, right above the golf course, and I have 2 hives. I've had 2 hives. This is my 4th year now, and I just started journeyman. I'm not sure that one of my hives is going to make it, and it was the strongest one, so I'm not sure what's going on. But I keep trying because I love it.
And you've had the full range of experience, right? Honey surplus your first year, like we say, doesn't happen. And then you had the yellow jacket invasion.
Yes,
Yeah,
very bad.
you've had like the full spectrum in just a few years.
Yeah, getting a lot of experience.
Thanks. And then Hannah?
Hi, I'm Hannah. I do beekeeping in the Linwood Edmonds area at Edmonds College. We met at the WASBA thing.
You have a bee club, right? Okay. And so we often have somebody from that bee club come and take the beginner. And I don't know if you're going to take the apprentice class too. But
yeah, I took the beginner and I might take the next apprentice class coming up, depending on our account funds for the bee club, if they want to pay for it for me. But I think we lost both of our hives due to yellow jackets pretty early in the winter. We've been working to get rid of the yellow jackets, and hopefully next year we won't have as bad of a situation, but we weren't proactive enough about it and it was really bad.
I wasn't either. I really failed this year on the yellow jacket issue. So you should get a mentor in that area though. There should be a beekeeper that would kind of be interested in coming in and talking to you.
Yeah, we should. And I mean, Mary, who runs our club, has been doing beekeeping a lot longer than, any student who comes through, but because she has her own hives at her home. But I don't know if we should find someone with longer experience. I'm not sure how long she's been doing it.
A different opinion comes and is willing to talk to you. Sometimes just somebody standing there at the hives has ideas when they're looking at.
Yeah.
Okay, just putting out the word here. We got some people here. If anyone wants to get in contact with Hannah, go through the chat, because Edmonds Community College is really close to like Linwood. So Linwood, Edmonds area.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you, thanks everybody for introducing yourselves. And then we're recording and I figured we record some slides. I'll put up some slides and it's really pretty informal. This isn't a formal presentation, but I thought I'd talk about the main issues. Maybe about the ordering bees and nuke versus package for beginners. And then those who are overwintering hives, how far are you pushing it on the peeking under the outer cover? Are you using the brood minder, the FLIR camera? Yeah, what are you doing to sit here and not, or if you just know you did everything right, that is a great feeling and you are settled in for the winter. So I will go ahead and share this power. Okay. I have announcements, of course. You never escape announcements. Let me adjust this side pictures over there. Asking people to renew the membership, which is $30, and you go to the website. And if people were talking about registering for classes, we have to pay full cost for the manuals, no refund. So the earlier you order them, the better the chance we can get them mailed to us and mailed out to you. Just a warning. That's a false. Oh, I promised an announcement about the Master Beekeeper. Inside of Washington State, the Washington the Washington Master Beekeepers Association, WASBA as we call them, and they're asking you to pay dues to them right now. To be honestly truthful, there's not a big reason to pay dues to them, and they don't share their dues with us. Actually, we pay dues based on our membership to them. But if you pay dues, if you contribute to WASBA, you are contributing to beekeeping as a whole. They have been promising, and I have been on a committee for 2 years, and we've been talking about changing the Master Beekeeper program inside of Washington State. And I know for those of you who are in beginner, that seems like a long ways away, but actually there are people here who never thought they'd go through journeyman, and they're already thinking about master. It kind of grows on you. If beekeeping's just right for you, it's right for you. So on the Master Beekeeper certification, it is still pretty much up in the air. The very first beta version class is supposed to start in June 2024. And I do have the next slide. No, I didn't put anything on the next slide. I thought I put something on the next slide about it. However, it has come to my attention that this is not going to be a university certification. In all the other Master Beekeeper programs that are popular and that you hear a lot about, they are a Master Beekeeper from University of Montana, Oregon State University, Cornell University, Penn State University, or whatever. They're from a university. I don't see that happening with the one here inside of Washington State. I've also found out that our club is eligible to help people register with a discount to the Cornell University Master Beekeeper. I'm still finding out about it. And because Washington State Beekeepers is going to ask $375 for the master alone, that's going to be their fee for the master course, which we don't know a lot about it. And Cornell University is only going to ask, it sounds terrible, $599, so $600. But their course only requires 3 years of beekeeping experience. So I think this is going to be very attractive to some of you, and I will put more information in a newsletter and send it out as fast as I get it. I went ahead and registered myself because I figured that's the way to really find out things, is to get into the program. It is going to have 4 online components, and then there will be a field practical, but you don't have to go to Cornell or another state to do it. You can do it here. And I'll find out more and put more in the newsletter. But it's sounding very attractive because the WASBA master is so undecided. And I have spent 2 years on that committee, and I am a little bit frustrated. It's still undecided. People are having difficulty deciding what they're going to do. But the thing that's the most important, I think, to a lot of people is that it will not be a master certificate granted by a university or associated with a university. It will be a Washington State Beekeepers, so only a local organization. What did I do? I'm sorry, went the wrong way. The journeymen meet with the advanced group. If you are even registered in journeyman, you are eligible to come. Our next meeting is February 7th, first Wednesday of each month, and the topic's going to be polyandry. Those queens get up there and they do it with a whole bunch of males. Why and how? And I guess, okay, we're interested in the topic. We're adults, and it will be family friendly, I'm sure. But we are going to talk about polyandry. Everybody contributes something in the group at this point. We don't have anybody taking charge and doing presentations, which you are welcome to do if you join the group and have an urge to do presentations. There's another group for the people who are up to journeyman level, Hive Mind. And Gina Cuff has been graciously doing that second Thursdays. She is teaching. She had to teach the last second Thursday, which I think was last week, and she might end up teaching the next one. So email her if you want the Zoom link, because she may have to move February's second Thursday because she's your instructor in the beginner class, for those of you who are in beginner. This is out of order. Okay. Then I was gonna go quickly into winter. Maybe we should go to the nukes and packages first. I'm gonna skip over what we can do in the winter time and what's happening inside our hives and go to the fact that Carol Moore, who's here, revised the nuke package list, and I will put it up tonight. I'll be happy to email a copy too. It's really easy to do. And then I will post it on the Facebook discussion group. And we're not recommending anyone. This is alphabetical order, whatever information we have. And as Carol warned you already when she was introducing herself, it's basically last year's information, but it's something to start with. You can find out if there's somebody next to you. Olympic Peninsula people, for example, the top one, they don't have a lot of options. And I think that's Ashley Barr. Yeah, Saskatraz. And she wants to be the distributor, the official Saskatraz bees distributor in, I think, the state of Washington. There are other people that have Saskatraz bees, but she's working specifically with a group that breeds them. Now, nukes and packages. For those of you who are beginners, you may not know that there's 2 ways your bees come, but you're covering it maybe tomorrow night. I wouldn't be surprised. Or the next night. And you get bees by the pound. That's the top picture. That is 3 pounds of bees there with a queen in a cage. The other way you buy them is in a nucleus hive, which we call a nuke, because it has a queen, some brood, some workers, some stores, some comb that's already, the beeswax is partly drawn out into the cells, and we call that a nuke because it's the nucleus of a hive. And you will cover installation in your class. But the main thing is to know there's 2 ways to get the bees, and you will hear a lot of controversy. So as soon as I go through the advantages and disadvantages, I should probably pause and let people here who are experienced tell you why they would or wouldn't do it. One or the other, buy nukes or buy the packages. And this is, you would be taking the frames out of a nuke and putting them into, do I have another picture? No. You would be taking them out and you would be moving frames into the hive, and it's, the installation's that simple. With the 3 pounds of bees, you got to shake them in, but it's actually very easy. And there's a lot of how-to explanations and YouTube videos, so that shouldn't be that hard. The nice thing about the nuke that I like is you get to see bees in action. I mean, here's bees just hanging on to each other, festooning and clinging to each other, because bees love to be with other bees. They love having 50, 60 roommates, which I just can't even imagine. One was enough in college. But and then you get a chance to look at, here's brood, and there's a bee bread ring here, and here's some capped honey, and you get to see a whole hive when you get your bees and when you're putting them into the nuke that you're, the hive boxes that you're actually putting them in. This is a cardboard box. You wouldn't want to try to keep them in a cardboard small box for very long. So you're putting them into your woodenware. Now, the controversy. The controversy is, let's see, I got nuke on this side versus package. The controversy starts with the cost. It used to be the packages were lower, okay, on the right here, and the nukes were higher. Well, now I'm seeing nukes and packages about the same cost. So cost may not really be a factor. In the past, your nuke came with a queen that was roaming around laying the eggs and the brood that you saw. So when you did that transferring the frames, you were seeing her brood. Nowadays, nukes tend to come with a queen in a cage, and she might have been released right before you picked up the nuke, but she may not be the queen that was in there. That's a question you actually have to ask the person who sells you that nucleus hive. In a package, you know you're getting a caged queen, because in those pounds of bees, you don't want to lose her. And so partly for her own protection, partly because she's never seen the bees in that package before, but she's a queen and they all hang around her and they want her, but she is protected in a cage. And you take a few days to introduce her out of that cage. And they explain that in your beginner class. In the nuke, you have frames that have brood being eggs and larvae on it. Well, in a package, you obviously don't have that. Drawn comb with the cells being already formed out of the wax that the bees make, you have that in a nuke, some of that, but you don't have that in a package. Okay, I'm kind of showing my bias here, okay? But you have honey and pollen stores in a nuke that were put in there. If the nuke takes too long to get to you, sometimes they get eaten up. I actually saw that happen last year in some nukes, but they did have it. Back one. You don't have that in a package. They come with a syrup can that is feeding them, and then you continue to feed the package, and you have to feed the nuke too. You don't get out of feeding them. You feed both of them to get them started in our springs, especially when our springs are cold, wet, and miserable like the last 2 springs were. And we are really feeling like we deserve a warmer spring this year. Please, we've been good. Feel like asking for something for Christmas. So the nuke, it kind of makes sense that it's going to take off because it's already a hive and somewhat organized. And the package bees, they're going to figure it out, but it's going to grow slower. And some of those older bees will be dying off before you get the new bees to replace them. But you got like 3 pounds of bees. That's over 10,000 bees. The differences kind of start with that you might have more mites and actually more diseases because the nuke is coming with brood. And we love brood, the bees love brood, but that's where the mites, the infamous mites that you always hear about, that's where they reproduce, and that's where they hide, is in brood, especially capped brood. So you're in a package, it's harder for the mites to hide. They have to be on the outsides of adult bees. It makes it easier when you get your nuke and your package. If you were to treat both of them for varroa mites, you'd have a better chance of killing off more of the mites, a bigger percentage with actually the package. That's one of the advantages of the package. The other thing is a lot of diseases in bees are brood diseases. If you have no brood, as in the package, those brood diseases can't come in that way. The older adult bees, the worker bees, they could be carrying some of those diseases, you know, like we all have a little bit of flu or cold virus in us, especially this time of the year. You know, everybody has to cover their mouths if they sneeze or, you know, because we know we have those. The nuke comes in a box. Sometimes it's a plastic box and it's reusable. That's kind of nice. In beginner courses, usually your instructor tells you, keep that nuke box, it will come in handy. Even if they offer you like $10 to return it, it's worth $10 to keep it, even a plastic one. With a nuke, as I was saying, Pat had the full experience with her bees. She got honey the first year after we carefully warned her, you know, it's really hard to get honey your first year. And everything worked out beautifully that year. And she actually harvested that year. So there's some big differences between the nuke and the package. For a quick start, for a guaranteed start, for a cold, wet spring, I'm going with the nuke. So should I kind of stop here and let other people say what they think?
And I can jump in with an experience that was,
Yeah.
I've only ever been a nuke myself as well. But I did have one of my neighbors buy a nuke, and she installed it in, it wasn't this last year, but it was the year before that, 2022. And she, you know, there are things she could have done, but within a couple weeks they had swarmed, and it was because she wasn't feeding them, and they weren't seeing her plastic frames foundation as space. And so they were just sticking on the 5 frames that she had stuck in there and not expanding, and they thought they were out of space and they swarmed. So I feel like the nukes can be this balancing act because they can be so full and they can be too full. They can build up too fast, but not, I don't know, not realize that they have room to grow.
That happened to a number of people, and it's 2 springs ago. And yeah, last spring was kind of cold and rainy. But if you lived here a long time, the spring before that, the spring of 2022, was that extra like 5 degrees every day colder without sun breaks. It was just a little colder all the time. And the phenomenon that Katie's talking about is a really great one for you beginners to kind of cover when you do this discussion, because what happens is that's not really a swarm, it's really a hunger abscond. And we do call it hunger swarming. But what it's not a normal swarm. The bees are sitting there shivering, and they have this comfortable 5 frames that Katie was talking about. It's like the comfortable living room furniture. They're in those 5 frames, and it's so cold, they don't want to move to the sides. So you take your 5 frames and you put them in the 10 frames, or sometimes people have 8, and they sit there and they wait for the weather to warm up, and they don't want to go to the sides. And yes, an experienced beekeeper would know what to do, hopefully, and recognize it soon enough. That's the hard part. Because people were even putting another box on top. And usually you put another box on top, the bees move up with the heat. That's what we always tell you. And these bees that year, some of them refused to go up. If it was blank foundation with no drawn out wax on it, and so it was the beginners who had no drawn wax except for what was in the nuke, their bees were the most likely to do this absconding. And I described this. Yeah.
Oh, my friend's bees did swarm though. Like they created swarm cells, and she had multiple queens at the end. I mean, she actually managed to catch the swarm, which was good. Put them back in the box, and then there was queen cells in the other one, and so we left it, and then she had 2 hives.
And so she did manage to catch him. Okay.
With lucky.
But
chasing
then it
them
must have
down.
warmed up. They must have lasted until it warmed up enough. There was like, it took a long time for it to warm up.
Yeah, it was right. They were right on the cusp of when.
Yeah. And okay, and that is a true swarm. Some people's left without any queen cells.
That's crazy.
Queen gets up and leaves. And they have to do that because no food, no brood, let's fly.
Absconding.
If they have no food, they can't raise brood. And if they can't raise brood, in that case, they ran out of space. So that if they stayed long enough, and she must have fed them some to keep them alive. Yeah, okay, she fed them. Some people didn't realize they had to keep feeding and feeding, and the bees just gave up totally and left. But if you fed them,
I think she might have fed them, but she just didn't realize that
they
she
would
needed
not
to put one of those foundation maybe inside one of the frames, or that they were just ignoring her plastic foundation completely.
Yeah, and you're not supposed to break up the brood nest. We tell you that.
Right, but if you have a food frame on the outside, you could scoop that over one and maybe get them to work right next to the brood nest.
And then to get them to move up, if you pick one up and put it right above, sometimes the bees go, oh, the comfortable furniture's down there, but we could use these ones out to the side.
And whether they put a wax layer on top of them, you know, because I wax them before, you know, so I don't have, the plastic stuff doesn't come straight. I put a coat of wax on it, and they don't have a problem jumping onto them.
Yeah. And
yeah, first came pre-waxed, but I showed her afterwards how to rub extra wax on.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's just not enough.
Yeah, and if you didn't have bees that particular spring, you could have skipped the extra wax. But it was that spring you needed to do every trick in the book. And if you're in a beginner class, ask about that, the extra waxing, like Ty was saying. But Ty, it was worse. That's the spring you didn't have bees yet. 2022 was worse than 2023. And people did everything you would think you should do, but the nukes did not want to move out to the site. And the package bees had a terrible time too, but they knew that they needed to group, and they didn't have a fixed place to live. So once they could move enough to take in the syrup, then they could get going. So sometimes this, where I say a nuke is better, doesn't work out.
Yeah, but they sure jumpstart pretty quickly. That's the nice part about them.
They should, except it was really funny. It was a whole bunch of them did it in 2022. a little bit in 2023.
Well, I got in 2022, I got my July hives, and I got them through, so that was good.
Yeah, but it was earlier. It was the 5 degrees lower all the way through April. It froze in April, I believe.
Right. Kathy Cox's
Okay.
queens got wet, and she lost all of her queens.
Yeah, she was also moving, and yeah, that was kind of bad. She was moving, and she's actually I think she admits she's 80. So so she didn't get out and do some stuff, I'm sure, too, when it needed to be done. Okay, and yeah, there are times when when the package takes off better.
And one thing I do like too about the package is that you're starting fresh, right? So you're starting with just foundation. You don't have any of the really gross old frames that somebody's put a clamp on the end to try to fix and they sell it to you anyways. I've seen so many of those helping other people with their bees. And I'm like, they give you junk. They give you the junk frames.
Yeah. How many people have seen that? Okay, one thing we didn't tell you about the nukes is that the growers, everybody's supposed to rotate out their old comb. When your brood comb starts getting dark and disgusting and blackish looking, okay, for various reasons, you are supposed to be rotating it out. Well, if you're selling nukes to people, it's just natural. You're giving them good drawn comb, and it is full of pheromone smell and hot, good hive smell and everything. So you put those in, and why would you give your best frames? So you do kind of just recycle out, figuring that the new beekeeper needs the pheromones and the good hive smells and such. Okay, that's good for them. And they're going to be putting that in with a whole bunch of new combs. But yes, that is one of the things that happens when you buy nukes. The other thing about nukes, I said diseases. I didn't mention wax moth and small hive beetle. In diseases, European foul brood is very serious. And actually, at one time, people bought packages in preference to a nuke because if they took those adults, and like Katie was saying, put the adults on empty foundation or very limited amount of drawn comb, they would feed them, and those bees, whatever they had in their stomachs, could be carrying microorganisms like European foul brood, and they would have to take whatever was in their stomachs, gorge on honey, and make wax to draw out on the empty foundation they were given on purpose by the beekeeper, and that would empty their stomachs into the wax. Yes, the bacteria, viruses, or spores or whatever, American foul brood, for example, is just around, but we usually don't get an infectious dose in our hives. I've never seen it. I know a lot of beekeepers who've never seen it. Every once in a while, it does show up. They mention it quickly in beginner. But because they had to empty their stomachs to make that wax, it's now diluted and it's in the wax and it's kind of halfway fixed. And actually, that was a big reason for buying packages. And if you ever hear me some year completely reverse course and tell you that get packages, it's because there's a European foul brood outbreak, an American foul brood outbreak, something has happened, and we don't want the disease coming through. And when I say foul brood, you're hearing brood, right? That's a brood disease. Okay, if you haven't got brood, you've got a lot less of it. The adults might carry it, but you're not bringing the little snotty nose can, sneezing all over everything and yeah, putting everything in their mouth into your daycare. I'm sorry, I used to do daycare. I love snotty nose kids, mine especially. But they're active petri dishes, a culture of viruses and bacteria, and I've never kidded myself about that. So we shouldn't kid ourselves about when we get brood from someone else. And the wax moth and the small hive beetle can hide in the old frames, especially the older wood frames. There's little cracks, and I wondered why they had little holes in them and such, and it looked like something had been digging in there. Yeah, small hive beetle and wax moth. Yeah, and that's how you get wax moth, and we hope you don't get small hive beetle into your hives. But that is actually one of the sneaky ways it gets in. In a package, a hive beetle would have a lot harder time hiding, but a teeny little hive beetle egg or larvae wax moth egg can get in a lot more easily into the comb and all that nuke. Anybody else with thoughts on this? Because as a beekeeper, I give one point of view, and I know that sometimes the opposite works.
I'd like to hear from Michael. I'd like to hear what you
Yeah,
think.
Michael Duncan. Yeah, okay. Once you're official journeyman, you gotta, yeah.
Okay, my official opinion is, I vote for packages. And now, beginner beekeepers, they're gonna have, a lot broader education by starting with packages and having to grow the bees through that earlier stage. And, I make nukes, I sell nukes, and, probably half of the nukes that I sell end up swarming. And I got kind of known for, in one club for, they said I was selling swarmy bees. Well, I wasn't selling swarmy bees. They were getting 8 to 10 frames of bees in a 5-frame nuke. And I told them, when you put them in the box, put the second box on immediately. I mean, like, soon as you install them. And they wouldn't, well, because our class said that we only need 5 and then feed them. And yeah, they were out of room when they put them in there, you know, and they didn't have, they had the 5 frames of comb that they came with, but the rest was foundation, and there was nothing for them, the queen, to lay on, and off they went. But I got to learn to sell weaker nukes. But I just, ethically, I want people to make sure they get their money's worth of bees when I overwinter the Palmer style double nukes. They're 4/4, and then I've got some 5/5s, and you know, you're left over with enough bees. You could start another nuke, but it's not quite queen rearing season yet, and I'm not going to buy in queens and sell nukes with brought in queens. Mine are all sold with overwintered queens. But from an education standpoint, I try to get the beginners to start with packages, and it's they have to pay a little more attention. They have to feed, but it gives them a broader education on bringing those bees up. It's also less likely to swarm, and they have a few less problems with them that first season.
Okay, so Michael Palmer, that's a little bit of an advanced technique, but there's lots of you that are advanced. If you want to kind of get 2 queens in the space of 1 hive stack, and they share heat, and they're right there, and if you needed to combine the hives, you could, if one died out. Okay, look up Michael Palmer. He's up in Vermont, I think. And he has a system, and he is a northern beekeeper, which is a big plus. So he knows what he's talking about. And he's really, he talks a lot about getting your resources and reserve queens and sustainability, and not constantly bringing in bees from elsewhere, which is its own set of problems, which is one of the problems with the nukes coming in every year with a new strain of Varroa, new viruses that those Varroa are carrying. There's some problems with this constant influx, and packages helps a little with that.
Eli,
Yeah.
I'd like to second what Michael said about the,
Okay.
it's, to be honest with you, I've only ever purchased packages for my bees other than a handful of queens. And to watch the bees draw their wax from foundation is just really fascinating. I mean, you'll get that with the nuke too, but just seeing how they develop the nest and all that from scratch is really, I think it's really something to see.
It really is. And in that case, you'd really be talking about going in weekly, right?
Yep.
None of
Weekly.
this every 2 weeks, which also leads to swarming, because queen cells can develop, and the queen can emerge in less than 2 weeks.
And to be honest with you, I think for a beginner, you know, so long as you're pulling out a frame and giving yourself plenty of room to work with, I think there's more to be learned being in that hive, you know, weekly, or even every 4 days if you need to, but just watching things develop.
And if you're doing good technique in the way
Yes.
you pull your hives, and you should talk about that quickly, but come out to an apiary hive side, we have the 2 apiaries, Granite Falls and Maltby, or your local club, or just invite yourself over somehow with a beekeeper you know, so that you can watch them.
Yeah.
Develop a bee buddy so that you don't roll the queen, as they say, by picking up a hive that's tied up against another hive, and you pull up like this, and you're going to crush some bees, which sets off alarm pheromone because the bees are dying or getting crushed, and your queen could be in there, and that could cause trouble. So if you have good technique, yeah.
The other thing should mention the time factor. If you know that's a consideration, you're expecting to go in 4-day or 5-day intervals. People who have other jobs and stuff like that may also find that difficult based upon the time of year and what time they get home and whether the sun is up or down. So there's some other factors I think that could weigh into that are probably worth mentioning.
Until you get to summertime, when the weather gets good enough and you can get home early enough and it's a warm evening and it's going to be a warm night, and then you could go in more often. So it might be a real problem, especially with the paycheck job, Monday through Friday, and you commute maybe. But yeah, if you can, it's great.
You know, talking about nukes and packages, I've always bought nukes. And but you know, you get these old frames.
Yes.
And there could be all kinds of diseases in them. You're bringing stuff home to your apiary is what you're doing. And that's something I've really been thinking about. And because this year I had problems that I didn't have last year. And if I'm buying nukes, that those bees are all coming from California. So this year I'm like, okay, I'm not buying any bees that are coming from California. And I'll buy from somebody that strictly raises bees in this area and doesn't have anything. And I don't want to purchase a nuke or a package the first thing out of the gate, because those queens are not strong. They haven't been mated enough, and they don't last that long. So I'm going to wait on mine if I add to my apiary. And yeah, I could add a lot to that, but
you know, maybe another article. Sandy's starting to be one of our newsletter article contributors. She did the pesticide series back in the newsletter. So yeah, sounds like another article coming up. There's pros and cons, and a lot of beekeeping is listening to both sides or all sides and deciding what's going to work for you. And you experiment some, you just try it out. But yeah. Yeah.
Michael, can I ask Michael Duncan, how many nukes do you usually sell?
What was the question? How many what?
How many nukes do you usually sell?
Up until this year, I was doing 20. I had 40 hives or 40 colonies, 20 hives and 20 nukes. And I'm downsizing, so I'm down to 8 and 8 right now. And I'm not on the swarm package list on Eli's there because I just don't want to pre-sell because I don't know what I'm going to have. I raise them for myself, replace my dead outs, and then whatever I have left, I'll sell. But I'm trying. I don't need to expand, so I am definitely needing to get rid of a bunch of nukes this year, and rather than putting them back into hives. So I know I've got at least 7 nukes for sale. I have 8, but when I was putting them away for the winter, one of them was grumpy. So right away, I had to red flag that one. It's like, nope, that one's not going to be a sellable nuke next year. I'm not going to give somebody a bad grouchy queen nuke. So I'm going to have to requeen that one and then split it, requeen them, and then sell them later in the season. But so I know I've got 7 right now.
Okay, Michael's always going to cut back. So just get in touch with him, email, and keep checking in. And when things get really busy in the spring, then he'll finally give up a few more that he would have been tempted to keep. Yeah.
Well, I think it's just such a nice thing to look out for the small beekeepers too that may just have 3 or 4 nukes to sell, but
Yeah.
they, they did overwinter them.
I
And
think
they're
the
local.
quality
Yeah.
is going to be there.
Yeah, they're local, and especially the disease thing. That for me is more than the genetics. I really want local nukes because of that. The Facebook group discussion page is a good place to when you've got some, say your area, say when they'll be ready, and definitely ask the going price at least. If you're going to sell a few, and it would be good. It would be really nice if we made it more sustainable inside of Western Washington. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I did a presentation for Eli as part of my journeyman service points on queen rearing for beginners, and we have that on the YouTube. The sound quality was really poor because I was off of a notepad and we had really bad sound, but the content I think was pretty good on that. And my focus on that presentation is really getting people sustainable on a local level. And queen rearing doesn't have to be complicated. You can raise good queens that are will do real well for you without having to raise excellent queens that maxing it out. But I know Dr. Tim Lawrence, Sue Kobe's husband up on Whidbey Island, he had mentioned to me that any queen that you raise locally is going to be better than anything that you can buy in. So yeah, we might not get the mating weather. And as you start learning queen rearing, if you've got some poorly mated queens, at least you've got queens. And then you have to swap them out when you have your second round of queens go through and then get some better queens in there. So it's part of it's just a little bit of record keeping, paying attention. And but anyways, anybody that hasn't seen that video, you can catch it on Eli's channel on YouTube, Queen Rearing for Beginners. And I'm about 20 something minutes in there after the announcements and the meeting and stuff. And like I said, the sound quality is horrible. I'm sorry for that. We ought to maybe redo that one.
Yeah,
Be
that's a thought.
interested in presenting for another group too, maybe?
That might be the way to get a really good quality recording. Hey, that's an idea. Of course, Michael, have you put yourself on the speakers list yet? Because I keep saying WASBA has a speakers list, and the people who I think are really good, not PhD, but they actually know how to keep bees and they know something like queen rearing in Western Washington. Come on, you should probably. Yeah, so get a hold of him, Katie, and have him speak for Pierce County.
Whidbey Island beekeepers would like him too, please.
Okay, yeah.
You just plug you in.
No, seriously, I mean, it's a thought. And then we get a really good quality. So the recording that Michael's talking about is on the monthly meetings playlist on the SnoKing Beekeepers YouTube channel. So if you go to YouTube, put in SnoKing Beekeepers, look for the monthly meetings playlist, and then you'll have to look a little for Michael Duncan's name.
Okay.
You did a couple of others. You did the language of bricks, which was funny too. Okay, I don't want to. I should.
Eli, one other last comment on the packages and nukes is, if somebody's got mediums, and the nukes are oftentimes in deeps, so it's harder to find nukes that are mediums, and then you have to deal with, 2 different frame types. So that's another case where packages may be more easily handled.
Lay-ins, hives, top bars, you have to go package. Yeah, and then if something like that, and there's 2 ways to solve that deep to Western conversion that I can think of right away. And you should cover them in beginner. And if you know you're going to face it, mention it beginner. One we call a bait frame. And the other one is simply putting 2 Western frames on each side of your 5-frame deep nuke and having those filled out first. Getting wax on those first so that the bees use those. And then you just take your 2 Western frames and move them up.
Yeah, it's just more administration. So I think that's one case where if you're comparing nukes versus packages, I think that could be a reasonable factor that could make a beginner's experience better, not having to deal with dissimilar frame types.
Yeah, this is really a toss-up, isn't it?
Yeah, with my beginners or my mentees that I run, if they are running medium gear, I'll either loan them a deep box and we'll put the nuke on the bottom and put their mediums on top and wait until the queen moves above. And then we'll put a queen excluder up above them and put the deep up there until the bees are, the brood is all cleared out. And then I can pull the deep off and I get my bucks back. So that's one way of doing it. The other is to have the deeps down below, put the medium or the deep on top with and just let them work their way down. Yeah, they generally work up faster than they do going down, but I just let them have a deep box for, I got a few hanging around now that I'm downsizing, but so that's how I solve that problem.
If you can join East Jefferson Bees and get over to the apiary there and meet Michael and also Tony, who I was saying was in the apiary and such, and get involved in the apiary there, you will get some great backing in that club. So if you're lucky enough to be on that side of the sound.
You're slightly confused there, Eli. West Sound Beekeepers has the club apiary.
But
East Jefferson, we just use our own home apiaries.
Yeah,
for
okay.
helping our
Okay.
mentees out when we have our apiary days, like what you do with your hive sides.
Yeah. Okay. Well, our hive sides, though, we've ended up going with 2 permanent homes, but yeah.
I'm trying to get a club apiary with the group, but it's like they've been there, done that, no thanks. And unless they've got somebody that's willing to take it on, it doesn't seem to go long term. And they've done it twice before.
But you have people over to your hives, you go to their hives.
Yes.
You know, it's really pretty neat.
Yeah, they can come over to my house and go through hives and, you know.
Okay. I think we covered a lot of the pros and cons and probably confused the beginners a whole bunch, but you might as well get confused early because beekeeping is like this. Okay. Let's see. What did I put on here next? Somewhere I have a cursor. Oh, quickly, queen cages. We talk about queen cages, and they are coming in a wood one sometimes or in a plastic one. And if your queen was in a cage, not loose in your nuke, and in a package, she has to be caged for her own safety, even because she doesn't know the bees and for a number of reasons. If you see a queen in a cage, she may have been there for some time. And this is queen banking. I was showing queen banking to one of my classes, and I realized people don't realize a queen in a cage may have been there for quite a while, unless you go someplace and you watch the person put the queen in the cage. They're moving a queen from one and they're making you up a nuke right there. Okay, there are 2 handouts on the SnoKing website, and forget the top part. That's another handout. But questions to ask nukes and package suppliers. You really should read through this document. Don't assume anything, because you'll think that you're getting treatment-free bees, for example, and you'll think, oh, I don't have to treat them. Well, that wasn't really what the person said. What they said was maybe they treated them already, sort of, but maybe not very well, and you don't know how. And there's just so many misunderstandings that happen, and they often happen in the first couple of years because you don't know the questions to ask and you assume something. And then, for example, like you buy a really overflowing hive from like Michael Duncan, and a few other people will say that they give you an overflowing hive. They dump extra bees in, and they are saying you are going to need to put this into a 10 frame immediately, and you're going to need to add the top box, if not immediately, very soon thereafter. And that's an unusual nuke. So that's why people would get caught with a hive swarming off in the nuke situation. Package situation, it would be less likely. And then the list, that's the old 2022 list. But this is a whole list of questions, and we actually are going to hit the 8 o'clock point sooner than I thought. We have 20 minutes left, and I want to make sure we get over enough basics that people feel like they got a presentation and we got through something. So there's this whole list of things. Do not assume. Usually you assume a queen is mated, but it wouldn't hurt to ask. If you see a queen loose in the nuke, you would assume she laid the brood that's there. But it doesn't hurt to ask, because maybe she didn't. and maybe it's important to you. If you when you take the queen in a package out and you are putting your bees, shaking them in to the hive you're installing them in, you couldn't see if that queen was alive or not before you shook the bees in. The queen may in fact be dead in that cage, and you need to know what the policy of the person who sold you the package is. Are they willing to, you bring that back immediately and say, this is a dead queen? Or do they give you a discount on dead queens, or what's their policy? And a few people who sell bees and nukes, the larger ones, will have a policy like that on their website sometimes. You have to ask a lot of questions. You're buying a live animal. This is livestock. And they do sometimes die for no reason that was really anybody's fault. It just happens. There's a whole set of questions. Make sure you know what you're getting. And when you ask if they were last treated for mites, for example, they'll say, oh yeah, they were treated for mites. But quite often the person who picked them up and is storing them didn't treat them, and they're taking the word of someone back there. And the someone back in Southern California, even Eastern Washington, might have sort of treated them, or yeah, they treated them sometime in the last year. But generally we're telling people, I think the beginner classes will say this a lot, we're just saying, don't assume they were treated. Start right away monitoring, and probably just go ahead if you have a gentle treatment and treat them. That's a little controversial. Anybody want to pipe in on that? Do you treat right after you get a nuke and a package, or do you not? Now remember, a nuke, all the mites are exposed and on adult bees until the brood cap's over. So at least 9 days. If they're pulling out wax for the brood combs, for the first eggs to be laid in, you probably got about 12 days. And all the mites are on the outside of adult bees. Okay, Michael, you got an opinion here?
I do. On your packages, I wouldn't treat them immediately, but I would treat them before they have cap brood. So just as the brood, as the queen starts laying and she's laying well, then I would go in and treat, usually about 7 to 10 days after you've installed your package. Nukes, I would actually let them go maybe a little bit longer. I might let them go 2 weeks, and that way they're well settled in. You've already got cap brood in there. You're not going to have any advantage by vaping them sooner. So I let them get well established before I go in and do a OAV on them. That's my opinion.
OAV being oxalic acid vaporization, and sort of really popular among people who do very many hives because it's the affordable system that people can afford. But the other treatments, I think, and the other treatments are temperature dependent, which makes it hard to do them in the spring. Trying to think what the first one you could do. You could do the inorganic, the synthetic ones. You can do those, but I don't like those organophosphates and stuff. But if you're okay with those, and that is probably what they were treated with, if you're buying a nuke or a package that's from a big truckload, they probably used the synthetic ones. And when I do varroa treatments, I draw a firm line between 6 organic treatments that are available and 3 that are available that are very synthetic, very bad for the environment. Hard chemicals is what I would call them. Okay. Anybody else on that? Because now there's a reason, see, for buying nukes, that it would be easier to get rid of the mites on them. Knock them down. None hiding in the brood cells.
My nuke provider is Tompkins, and he said that they were all treated, but you needed to treat them within a month after they start brooding again. But he told me that the 2 nukes I bought from him were pretty heavily treated before they released them. So I don't know.
And he's trusting the guy he picked them up from. Casey Tompkins, the big truckload bringing it over the pass from Eastern Washington. He has done that once each year for several years at least now. And I don't know if he'll do it again this year. He lost a truck tire, and I think that was kind of expensive, getting that tire replaced on the, when he got broke down on the road. That was kind of a miserable experience. So
And he lost a hive.
doesn't
A hive got loose too. He had
busted, and he
a
had beat
whole
up.
hive.
Yeah. Yeah,
It
it
was
was kind of interesting if you did the pickup last year. That was exciting. People who didn't bring bee suits, other people carried their bees to the car for him or truck for him or whatever.
It wasn't pretty. Even he got stung a couple times.
Yeah. Bee suit test. That's what I call it. Then you're going to go with Nukes and Packages. The post installation is pretty much, I guess, going to be the same. You're going to feed them. I would recommend feeding them pollen patties with our cold, wet springs. Is there anybody who really objects to that? Small hive beetle, you can't do it in other parts of the country. You don't put pollen patties in unless they're necessary. And people say, how long do you feed? This is a good one. While we're on this topic, this is really controversial. How long do you feed? Some people say until they don't take it anymore. Well, every once in a while, I've had a wacko hive that just loved taking sugar water and sticking it into the honeycombs and not switching over to nectar. Okay. So is there a turnoff point? And the best turnoff point for not feeding them anymore that I've found is you've got almost all the wax you're going to need. It's hard to think that far ahead in April and May that you're going to need to overwinter in. They've got their 2 deeps or 3 westerns. What your goal for drawn wax is, they've got most of that, say 2/3 of it drawn out, then you could stop feeding. Okay, I know there's opinions on this. No?
Well, Eli, this is Heidi. It's kind of a mixed bag of things, you know, when you get into that dearth and maybe they need a little help, but then, you know, if they're in that dearth and they're not bringing in that nectar and pollen, they also make that queen take a break, won't let her lay eggs. So that could be a natural form of mite control as well. So I think it's a mixed bag of, you know, what do you do? And our weather, you know, we have what, 3-4 months to get them ready for winter. What do you do? So well, my bees were out until December, and which is was nice. But now we're here freezing our tail off, and but I think it's just a mixed bag. What do you do? I think in your situation where they decide, no, we're just going to sit here and make Eli do all the work and feed us. Or, you know, I don't think I've ever ran into a situation where I had a beehive do that, but I know in a dearth situation, I'm really always concerned about getting my bees fat and happy and ready for winter, especially our springs and summers. Sometimes we get a fall, they're so often short. But then, you know, you also get that brood break if they're not bringing that pollen or nectar in as well. So what do you do?
That's part of what people were saying about the bigger hive can sometimes crash. And it was the one you thought would do better going into the winter, but maybe it never had a natural brood slowdown or brood break. And I think that's part of it. It's always had a big brood nest and it didn't ever slow down, which looks really good. You get lots of honey production. And then you go into fall with a lot of brood and a lot of mites hiding inside the capped brood. So yeah, and the dearth we're talking about, if anybody's not from this area, is the late July, early August, about then, the dry dearth. Right? Okay. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on that. One thing is, what do we do now? And actually, in the newsletter, I sort of put the checklist and thought, well, maybe that might be useful to go over. And if anyone wants to, I can talk get outs as well. Okay, but like, what can we do? And don't forget, there are things you can do, and you're not going to hurt your bees. And we are going to stick with that. We're not going to do anything that harms our bees, right? But you can check the entrances and make sure they're clear. check the ground and see what's going on. How many dead bees on the ground, on the bottom board or slide out boards. The stores, even without going in, I don't know how many people actually weigh their hives. I know the WASBA manual tells me to tell my classes to weigh the hives, but I'll be honest, I've always hefted, except when I can see inside them and then just count the number of frames of stores that they have. Somebody's radio is on in the background, or TV. Let's see. Oh, and the stores, can the bees reach the stores? Well, when it's this cold as it's been in my area, you lowland people, you're probably going to get a chance to look like Monday. But those of us who are a little higher up, we're not going to get that chance. So if you don't know, I opt for the, go ahead and give them the emergency feed without even lifting the inner cover if it's as cold as it is in my place. The snow is very pretty today. And you can feed them right around the opening in the inner cover, and they will, and then when they eat away right next to the inner cover, I'm tempted, I can't resist pushing it, the sugar or the fondant, a little closer to the opening so they can come up and get it. And as soon as we get through the very coldest part of winter, that's usually when I find my bees can come up on the inner cover. Some people should be checking their sun position, their sunshade position. This is a good time of the year. Make sure that at some point in the winter day, the sun can hit your hives if possible. You can't always do it, but if there is a way that your bees will get a sun break when the sun will hit their hives on those days that do happen, that the solstice position. And you can't see that in the middle of summer. So those of you who don't have bees yet, this is really kind of for you. Go to where your hive would be and decide, would it get some sun in the winter at all? Even just a little bit helps. They go out and they do what's called a cleansing flight. They also brood up at this, actually, as soon as we finish the coldest part of the year, they brood up. It can be this early. And some people were talking about moving their hives. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on that, but I'm really afraid that if you move hives when they're in tight cluster, if they came apart, would they be warm enough to be able to get back into cluster again? So I don't like jiggling my hives until it gets a little warmer. And it's good to be comparing and listening to other people so that if I give advice, you realize I went down to single digits only last week. So if I give advice, it's going to be different than somebody like Tony, who's way down near this, what is it, 25 feet above sea level or something. And he will talk about really, really warm weather and his banana plants or whatever, and his greenhouses. So you'll get completely different. And that's an important thing whenever you're getting advice from a beekeeper or talking to them, keep track of where they are and what their microclimate's like. I'm going to urge that you dismantle and store your dead outs, and other people say, ah, just seal them up. Well, if you seal them up at 100% humidity outside, everything inside just molds and slops, I think. And I'm afraid of yellow jackets this year, that they just move in or keep eating and keep feeding all winter long, because I'm not convinced they're dying out this year. Also, you're attracting robbing. And if you're sure it's your hive next door, okay. But are you sure it is? Because bees, the minute it starts to warm up, they will go pretty far to rob out another hive. And the other reason for dismantling the dead outs is so you can snitch the honey that's left off those and put it on the hives that are doing better. And sometimes I just, okay, at this time of the year when it's really cold and I'm worried about them and I've got a whole box of resources I put together, I will lift the inner cover, slap that on. I'll keep it in the house overnight even to keep it at room temperature, get the honey up to room temperature, but take the inner cover off, put the stores, the box of stores that I don't want to try to find a place to store it, and then put the inner cover back on, and they can just move up into those stores as the winter goes on. I don't know if anyone else does that. I also will, if my long hives, my horizontals, I will, if it gets warm enough and they've eaten all the honey off the frames that are closest to them, I am quite capable of switching out the empties for the ones with honey at the end, the honey stores that are too far away from the brood nest. I don't know of a negative to doing that. If anyone does, let me know. And we have lots to do during the winter, between the repairing, the mending, the scraping, the planning, the ordering. We only have, how many minutes left? We only have 5 minutes left. Let's see, we have our choice. We're having wonderful discussion though. I put in a bunch of slides. Let's see, I put a bunch of slides about dead outs. And then too, about what you're safe doing. You can go out and peek, I think, most circumstances. And then, oh, I promised a broodminder slide. Paula probably already left. A broodminder slide here. I should put this on the Facebook discussion group. And the bottom is weight. And yes, the weight's dropped. And where this line is, I managed to do this. I put the green line where my 5-degree night was. And then down here, that dotted green line. And it's interesting. Those bees, when it was 5 degrees outside, looky, they were still holding tight up there. Look at those temperatures up there. But I noticed that right about the time that temperature took the dip, they started doing something with their stores. I was hoping Paula would be here and tell me. I think she already left. I may have to ask her if she knows how to read this better. But some of them are looking really good. Here's the 70. The magic lines are 70, because 68 to 70, if your cluster is close to that, and if the center of the cluster is close to that, that's the temperature they need to keep a queen at if they can. And then the brood zone up here, when they get up really close to that, when there's a jump, which I don't see happening in any of these, but it happened a couple of years ago at this time, I saw the jump. And you'll see if your sensor's close enough to your cluster or to where they're starting to raise their brood, you'll see the jump. So this is what we were talking about. The sensor's inside, and we know they're eating the stores. And wow, they did something with them right there, right where they hit that 1-degree day, but they're not dead because these hives up here are still going strong. Anything that's important that we should cover? The condensing hive is a really big topic right now. Be happy to talk about it with anybody who wanted to stay. The idea of not having much of an upper event or any, and letting the bees take charge. This diagram up here is from ambient weather, and that's our humidity. Here's 100%, and this is the outdoor humidity. And yes, it does drop some days, but pretty much we spend a lot of time at 100% humidity. And if you don't take your dead out in, I think it's going to mold. Anything that we should cover before we say we're officially over? The fall summer.
So Eli, can you just go over on the dead outs? What exactly do you mean by take them out? I mean, how do you clean them up?
You know they're dead, and you don't go in until you know they're dead, right? But okay, you go in and you take all the equipment apart, and if you have honey, if you just leave it out there and it gets wet sloppy at that 100% humidity that we have, it'll just kind of, and honey is sweet, so it picks up, it's hygroscopic, it pulls moisture toward it. So you don't really want that to get, I mean, the bees can clean off some mold, but you don't want it to get really sloppy wet. And woodenware lasts longer if you bring it inside and let it dry out. I don't know if you've ever experienced that with something. Compost bins. I used to do a lot of demonstrations of wooden worm compost bins. And one thing that really helped was you completely let them dry out every year, once a year, or every couple of years, and the wood will last a lot longer. The same for beehives. The wood, if it's dry, I don't know how many other people can corroborate this, it lasts longer if you don't let it sit out in the wet. And other people will say, oh, I just let it sit there, a swarm will move in. I don't think I'm willing to risk my, especially the yellow jackets. That's it. No way am I leaving any place for the yellow jackets to land. So does
So,
that help? You take everything out, scrape all the excess propolis off.
okay.
And in case
Okay.
of overwintering hives, you would have maybe some black frames with the comb is been used so many times in the brood nest by the hive. You maybe say, I'm not going to keep that one. And if it's really gross moldy, a lot of people say no, or hose it off even before they give it back to the bees. Bees will clean up a lot of the mold though. Let's see, do I have some dead out pictures here? I think I do. Sorry, get through. Here's dead. Let's see. Do I have a dead out picture there? Yeah, and bees can clean out dead bees. Be easier if they were dry rather than moldy. And you need to kind of look at how they died too. That's part of why you clean them out is you're autopsying them. And we should maybe do this next time because we didn't have enough time. Your slide out board, of course, you're always watching that. Here, I know I've got a hive that's still alive because I can see they're dropping the debris down between the frames. And so I know that this cluster of bees, this is a little bit older. This is like a month or two ago, but I was still having a lot of problems with the yellow jacket. See all the bee parts up here? Yeah, yeah.
And then if there's a whole bunch of dead bees on the one that's still alive, that's a good sign, right? Because they're carrying out the dead.
If they and it could be out to the front, or you might find them on the inner cover. And when it's really cold and wet and horrible outside, the undertaker mortician bees are known for not taking the dead bodies all the way out like they're supposed to. They sort of take them up and shove them up in the attic. I think they'll also do it with frame feeders that are empty at the end of the fall. You were feeding them with your inline frame feeder, and then you go to clean it out in the spring, and you look, you got all these dead bees in there. And quite often, I think they've just tipped them in there instead of flying them all the way out. And then they will sometimes just shove them just off the landing board. But if the weather's good enough, they do their job and they hygienically carry the corpses away from the hive so that you don't see those dead bodies most of the late spring, summer, early fall. But yeah, this time of the year, you do. But yeah, and then being honest with yourself. I mean, this was mites. Look at, there's a lot of these that are definitely mite. You can see them very clearly. Didn't think the mites were there, stopped treating. This was a case of stop treating about August, I think it was, the beekeeper said, and thought the Apigard was good enough, and then it zoomed. And we know that the mites do this, and that's why I put some mite pictures in here. This was yellow jackets ate the bees down to nothing. And here's the queen with the last few bees clustering in, just dwindling down. They never had a chance. They did. That's it. That's how many bees were left by the time they fought off the. And being honest with yourself, was your queen poor last year? I put the shotgun pattern in here. And Michael Duncan was saying about the bee, knowing that your queen isn't very good. And we just use this vague isn't very good. Well, a spotty brood pattern is a problem. This is beautiful brood pattern, cap worker brood pattern. We still got we got one beginner on here. So just so you know that when he's saying poor queen, that's part of it. Why is she so spotty? Why is her brood pattern? What's going on in the hive? And that was the biggest stuff I wanted to say. Let me stop the recording if that's okay with everyone. It's a long enough recording. Thanks for all for coming.